This is Johnny with TigerBomb MMA, and today I'm going to go over UFC Vegas 105, Emmett versus Murphy, give you my thoughts, predictions, another 13-bout card in the Apex. It is, to me, I call it like the poke type of card because there's a lot of possibilities for the props, and there's a lot of uncertainties. Like, I like this card specifically for live betting, which I've been doing a lot lately, and it's been working out for me. And this is another situation where if A doesn't happen, B might happen. But we've got Josh Emmett. He's 40 years old, fighting a up-and-coming contender in Leroné Murphy in the featherweight division. It's going to be a fun main event, and it's going to really prove one of two things, is that if Emmett still has it in him to make a run at 40 years old, odds are he doesn't. But if he can get another spectacular knockout, there's a good chance they might just be able to put him in there. Like, if, say, things happen, we have a UFC 314 coming up soon. I've always wanted to see Volkanovski fight Josh Emmett. That would have been an excellent fight. But if Leroné Murphy can get past Emmett, what are his chances in that division? You know, what is best for business? We will see. Before I break down this card, I want to give you really quick thoughts on the previous card, my general thoughts on it, which was the Moreno versus Usyk card. And yeah, I killed it on this card. I went like 12-1 with the only fight being Lazy Boy that I lost. And even then I thought, man, they're probably going to rob Borjas. But not too bad. Started off pretty good. Again, started off hot with Markel Medeiros. He dropped from like minus 165 to minus 140 really, really late. I took him at those odds. And yes, I thought he won round number 3. My biggest thing is if you're not doing any fucking damage on top, Hubbard, you harmless cunt, and you get cut with a damaging shot, and then that's the most significant thing in the round, you're not going to win it in my book. So the right person won. Moving on to that, Jamal Emmers defeats Gabriel Miranda. I had Emmers on like a few late parlays. I actually ended up taking round number 2 and 3 for Emmers, and then round number 1 for Miranda, like little pokes. Neither of them cashed, so it was what it was. But, you know, Emmers handled business. Emmers isn't really known to just go out there and just try to, like, knock dudes out. But he seemed very motivated to prove a point. And Miranda, he just could not survive another 40 seconds for me. Rafa Garcia defeats Vink Pichel. Horrible scorecards, 30-27s for 2 of the scorecards. Ridiculous. Vink Pichel was saying that he got robbed. He did not get robbed. He lost round number 1 decisively. I thought he got hit way too hard. He wasn't necessarily looking any good. He did come back in round number 2, which he won, and then round number 3 he lost pretty decisively. It wasn't like a robbery. It was just kind of like it was a robbery. It was a 30-27 across the boards, but he still would have lost in my book. Lupi defeats Palastri. I tweeted out, Lupi is giving Palastri the rubber. She is giving it to her good, fucking slamming her. I want to know what Lupi looks like when she is not harboring a food baby that she's trying to like keep in the diarrhea. Palastri looked good, but in context, like, how good would have Lupi looked in this spot? Because she normally does that to these girls that aren't at that level. But Palastri, again, handled business in round number 3, just not enough. Very entertaining. Like, people who were backing Palastri could, like, you know, yeah, he did a good job. Like, had there been more time, had there been no time limits, Palastri would have won. Well, too fucking bad. Mel Costa defeats Christian Rodriguez. Now, I was on Mel Costa, and I was having second thoughts because, you know, Christian, I kept hearing, like, this guy's doing his miles up in Mexico. He's been, like, living there for months. And to me, this was the biggest letdown of the card. Christian fought like a moron, and that's coming from a guy who is a big Rodriguez fan, a big C-Rod guy. Like, I think he's got a ton of potential, but the way he fought Mel Costa was horrendous. Like, as a guy with some money on Costa and picking him, it was like, brother, what are you doing, Christian? Not like this. Dude's clinching him up. Like, brother, what are you doing? Strike with him. A little too late in round number 3. That's when he started pouring it on. Really pissed me off. But either way, being on the Costa side was the right play. I had a feeling that length of Costa was going to give him trouble, and it's nice to know that those issues for Rodriguez are still there. Kind of tucking that information down. We'll move on. Gautier defeats Medina. Easy play. I had 3 props that I was going to play, which was 1, Gautier by TKO. I didn't want to pick round number 1 because if he was going to pace himself, Medina is somewhat durable, but he's never been hit like that. And then when he was like, come on, hit me against the cage, Gautier obliged him, which was fantastic. Easy shit right there. Like, Medina's gone. They might actually give him one more fight, which is fascinating. They might tell him, lose some fucking baby fat, go to welterweight, and I don't know, we'll give you somebody. But yeah, for Gautier, again, the time to fade him will come. This was not the spot, unfortunately. Like, I had nothing on Medina. I thought that if he survived round number 1, that's when you can potentially live bet him. But even then, the output of Gautier looked pretty reserved. He looked more technical, and he handled business as expected. Kevin Borjas defeats Ronaldo Rodriguez. Lazy boy. Lazy fought like an idiot as well. Like, even in his post-fight Instagram/tweet, he was like, at least the fight was entertaining. I'm like, no, bro, you're an idiot. You're spamming the dumbest shit. You're not wrestling. And even then, I thought he had done enough for the crowd to help him win a decision. Luckily, Borjas won all 3 rounds, at least on 2 of the judges' scorecards. Fascinating, because Rodriguez, we'll talk about him in a bit later, it was like, what was he fucking thinking? This guy's an idiot. He's got horrible fight IQ, at least in this situation. I don't know what he was thinking. David Martinez, another prop that I had, knockout David Martinez plus 150. Easiest money. Like, after doing more research on David, I started realizing, like, this guy's actually legit. He may not have impressed me in the Contender Series, but when you see him knocking out the toughest Mexicans they can find, like taco vendors, even the taco vendors have great chins, and he's knocking them out with one punch. I'm like, Simon's got no chance. So yeah, it happened the way it happened. Like, Simon still showed those tendencies of like, I need to spin. Like, he was holding it back, but he's like, I need to do something fucking stupid, and he would spin. And Martinez was just like, any minute now I'm going to catch him, which he did. Raul Rosas defeats Vince Morales. I had Rosas, unfortunately, inside the distance. I also bet like a small poke on Vince Morales by sub, essentially both of them by sub. That moment when Vince had him in those like semi-Peruvian / Darce chokes, I was like, please tap. And he wouldn't tap. It was like plus 1,400. Was what it was. Final prop that I had, Edgar Chairez by submission. There was a bit of me that was like, because I did parlay some up with the last few guys. I was like, maybe don't go just pure submission. I did bet the submission, but I also had him inside the distance because of what happened. He left hooks this motherfucker, and then he could have gone for the TKO, but he's like, nah, I'm going to choke him out. So it was beautiful. It was a fantastic performance. He looked just like Alex Pereira. He did it in front of Alex Pereira. He said, Chama, no Chama. It was awesome. Manuel Torres defeats Drew Dober. I had Torres inside the distance, and on top of that, I did poke on the submission just in case. No problem here. He caught him with a beautiful long 1-2, and then the like 16 unanswered shots from Dober. Props to Dober, though. He wakes up and he's like, what the fuck? What happened? Like, I'm still fighting. Yeah, that was a massacre. Torres looked a lot more reserved. I like what I saw from him. And like, I am expecting him to do the same to a Terrence McKinney once they pair him up together soon. And then Brandon Moreno beat Steve Erceg. And I felt like I predicted that one pretty spot on. I thought that it was going to be competitive. It was going to go all 5 rounds. There was going to be some contention. I've heard that like, Steve was up 3-2, and Moreno was, Moreno did what I expected. I thought he was going to win enough rounds convincingly, if you will, but Steve was also going to make a case that he could have won the fight. But Steve didn't do enough. He wasn't mixing in any takedowns. He wasn't doing anything extra. Brandon was the one landing the harder shots. Just kind of was what it was. Overall, very good night for me. I made some money, and I'm planning on doing the same with this card, the Emmett versus Murphy card, just kind of poking on a couple things and looking at a couple props. But let's get down to business with this card because, again, as I call it, it is very much so a let's kind of poke and prod at it, because first fight of the night, Loma Lookboonme fighting Estela Nunes. Nunes hasn't fought in like 2 years, broke her arm badly, dislocated it against a fraud in Victoria Dudakova. Loma, she's the Muay Thai princess, and she's been looking a lot more polished as fights keep going on. Her wrestling has gotten better, mostly with like takedowns and trips, and her submissions finally are paying off. Like, she's been working on her ground game. She is This is a tailor-made matchup for Loma, a girl in Nunes. They're both Muay Thai strikers. They're both Muay Thai champions to an extent. One is actually Thai. The issue with Nunes, despite the fact that I like the shape she's in right now, the amount of energy she expels in a fight, constantly moving, constantly throwing like head kicks and spins and shit, that is going to wear her out. And come round number 2 and 3, I think Loma's going to slowly take over, slowly impose her will on her, and just eat away at the gas tank. Loma's just such a technical kickboxer that she's already fought long, tall girls with that kind of explosive type of power in, for example, Bruna Brazil. So give me Loma to win this fight by a decision. What I'm thinking is, with Loma kind of working on her submissions, Nunes isn't necessarily the greatest submission defense kind of girl. Again, she might gas out. I'm curious to see if she looks better, hence my prediction being the decision, that she might be able to defend takedowns. Or, she's at ATT training with like Pantoja, or maybe she's just like Pantoja's like female punching bag. Who knows? But give me Loma, possibly betting the submission line, which I don't think it's all that great now that I look at it. It's like maybe plus 400. Loma sub. Yeah, plus 400. So maybe that might be a good play, but give me decision. Next bout, we've got Vanessa Demopoulos versus Talita Alencar. Both are black belts in jiu-jitsu. Both are kind of up there in age, 34 for Alencar, 36 for Demopoulos. Demopoulos, we know, like she's got a black belt in BJJ, and she's also got a black belt in just plain old BJs because of, her history. Her pole dancing abilities is actually a great indicator of how good her arm bars are, but is she going to catch Tatiana? I don't think so. This is a very good spot for Demopoulos here. And before I forget, what are the odds on these girls? I should have read the odds. Yeah, Lookboonme was minus 650. Yeah, that ain't going to fly. Nunes is plus 475. Maybe a pass on that one. I mean, if you want to be bold on a women's MMA bout where anything can happen, maybe take Lookboonme, or Nunes. But for Demopoulos and Alencar, it's kind of a pick 'em, minus 110. The money's actually coming in on Demopoulos, which is understandable. My thing with Demopoulos is that she's a visually appealing fighter, and I don't mean that because booty and face. It's that she does bad technique that appeals to the judges. Like, she will run forward, throw horrible overhands. She can crack. She can get takedowns. She's a solid, aggressive fighter. That aggression in a women's MMA bout can get you absolutely far. The technical expertise of Alencar on the mat, I think, are going to show here. They're roughly the same size. She is going to be a little undersized in Alencar. I think I saw some improvements in her striking. She even landed a head kick in the second fight with Luciano. It's just that I can't trust these gassy Brazilians. I think if Demopoulos can, withstand the onslaught of Alencar, which, if I'm being honest, it's not the most dominant. It's not like her last fight against Amarin. Amarin's just a bigger girl, more aggressive with the subs, and, the whole thing with the glove in the hand. It's funny that she doesn't like, in this situation, to be fingered, at least in her glove. But I think Demopoulos is an intriguing play because of that type of aggression, the fact that she can maybe stay safe. I'm kind of like, I'm torn between it because I think Alencar has a better skill set. I think she's the much better black belt. I'm going to lean her by a decision, but I get the feeling that Alencar is going to do enough to win the fight, but they're going to give it to Demopoulos because she like bum rushes her more. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's like a dog or pass. Man, I wish Demopoulos might have still been the dog. I think at that point it would have made it a little easier. In this case, I think Alencar, because they are so evenly matched, at least on paper, because also visually, if you look at their jiu-jitsu criteria, Alencar should wipe the floor with her. It's just when it comes to a fight, I don't think Alencar is much of a fighter. I think she's more of like position type. She's not much of like a type of girl that gets like subs all the time. She's more of a decision fighter. I think Demopoulos is more than likely to maybe hurt her and try to catch her if Alencar is gassed out. But Yeah, I hate this fight. Give me Alencar, just cause. Moving on, we've got Victor Henry versus Pedro Falcao. Falcao is plus 175. Henry minus 205. Cannot condone betting a minus 205 Victor Henry in this spot. You know, he's 37 years old. Falcao is younger. They're both jiu-jitsu black belts. I believe Henry is. I know Falcao is. With Henry, he's got a lot of high-level experience. He's fought a lot of high-level guys. The dude is legit. There are parts of me that think that he is slowing down a bit. You know, he's been training with he's the protege essentially of Josh Barnett, but at this time it's like, is it still his protege or is it like his, you know, teammate at this point? Like, are they training that often? Like, I think Victor can take it from now, you know what I'm saying? Like, he can start teaching his own classes. And for Falcao, he's not a bad fighter. He does like to mix in wrestling, and Henry, as of late, his takedown defense has been kind of suspicious. But this is maybe like the third or so. Yeah, he's fought a couple of guys very similar to Falcao. Sun Sao, more or less kind of similar. Like a guy wants to get it to the ground, he can strike, but he can get on top. Fucking Ronnie Yaya, he looked a lot better against Yaya. And even in the Charles Jourdain fight, I thought he was doing very well. Maybe like signs of him slowing down a bit, but not ultimately. I think he can still go. It's just he ended up getting caught, and he got caught in a very, very tight submission. So I don't blame him for that. For Falcao, he's going to have to keep this up for 3 rounds. And I'm not saying this because he looked incredibly fatigued in a short notice bout against Victor Hugo. It was primarily that, like in other fights, he does seem to kind of slow down a little bit where Victor Henry does not. And if Victor can maintain good pace and a good output and just kind of putting pressure on Falcao, making him shoot and miss, which, you know, I think Henry does have that kind of ability, he should win this one by decision. I don't foresee either guy getting finished, but this could very well be a spot where we do see the decline of Victor Henry. Like, this guy's been fighting for a long time, and I don't know if he is still working. From what I heard, he was like a bouncer or a bartender at a bar in California. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but he does have the skill set. Does he have the experience? Yes. Does he have the youth on his side? Not quite. I just don't think he's washed enough, if you will, to lose to Pedro Falcao, who, you know, looking at his record, he's kind of been dominating bums. As for Henry, he's been fighting some legit guys. So give me Victor Henry via experience with high-level competition. Next bout, McKee versus Daniel Frunza. Ooh, Frunza is roughly minus 170. Comeback on McKee is plus 135. For looking at that tapology, showing that he's going to knock out McKee according to 82% or so of the people, why is he so small of a favorite? You know what I'm saying? Like, he should be maybe minus 200, 250. And that's because Daniel Frunza is kind of Daniel Fraudza. And I don't say that in a way to like try to disrespect him. I like his style. He moves forward. He's this like Romanian dude, gives no fucks, goes forward, good cardio, good boxing, good jab, overhand. I like what he brings to the table, but there's something about this guy that I just don't trust at these odds, even against a guy like McKee, who is a guy who has not won a UFC fight in his first stint, and surprised he hasn't been let go. The thing with Frunza is he can very well catch McKee. He hits hard enough, and he is going to be at a 5-inch reach disadvantage. McKee, what we know about him, he's a fucking Irish zombie. This guy can take punishment, but the guy is like this weird anomaly freak that he may be slow. He may have like a super high chin up in the air, but the guy can dish it out. He can take it and he can dish it out. And what I noticed about Frunza is he has been knocked out. I just want to make sure I notated how many times he's not been knocked out. Or not knocked out, I'm sorry, but like knocked down. But he, at least 2 times I've seen this guy get dropped by competition that is not necessarily the best. And on top of that, he has been choked out twice by rear naked choke. McKee, the thing about him is that I worry that if I end up taking Frunza, like any sort of money on Frunza, because he is, to me, the more technical boxer. I think he cuts good angles, cuts to the inside, can land those punches, switch his stance as well. and he's going to be faster than McKee. But if McKee can take a punch and then say he lands something, let's just say hypothetically an uppercut, and Frunza drops, I think McKee can jump in there and take the neck with those long arms. You know what I'm saying? Like those long man chokes, the power guillotines, the darces, shit, even a triangle. I do think that McKee, who in his last fight against Chidi Nzecukwu did go for a ton of takedowns, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea here against Frunza. I think he can use his physicality for McKee, like show a different staple, because he's mainly a striker. I think this could be a spot where McKee can actually implement a very good, well-rounded MMA style. It's just that he's going to have to catch Frunza kind of slacking, you know what I mean? Like it's going to have to be on the feet where he hurts him, and then he takes him back down, takes his back and chokes him out or something. So I think the McKee submission line might be kind of nice. Let me see. McKee. No, that's how I wish. Frunza submission 1600 plus 1600. McKee plus 600 for Reese McKee by sub is what I'm seeing. I just get that weird feeling because these two are going to bang. This is going to be a car crash for as long as it lasts. And McKee, he has been hurt time and time by lesser competition. And I think Frunza's legit with the striking. It's just I want to see a little bit more with that defense. And with Frunza, I think he might crash into McKee, and McKee with, you know, the longer arms, just kind of waiting back. Like they both move forward. So I want to see who takes the first step back. I think this is going to be a fun fight while it lasts. But if I'm being honest, if I see any guy getting knocked out or finished, it might actually be Frunza. So hence me thinking, I think McKee's pretty live here. I'm not a fan of it, but I have to kind of go with that feeling that McKee might get that submission or that TKO, because I'm looking at that fight with Coetzee. If Coetzee did not gas as bad as he did, he would have beaten Frunza. Frunza was fighting a corpse out there, and McKee is a corpse that will fight back until the bitter end. So for that reason, give me McKee. I think this might be a good spot, but here's the problem. Sometimes the simple, let's just fade the guy who's never won a UFC fight in his life. Neither of them have, but one guy has attempted more. If you use that same consistent method, like let's just fade Molly McCann forever and ever, it's probably going to be more successful. But I got to go out on my shield with this one. Give me Reese McKee by submission. I think he can actually hurt him at one point. I mean, we saw that fight with him and I was going to call him Impa. What's his name? Anglusa hurts him in the third. And I just think that he can hurt Frunza. You know, also Frunza's nipples, I don't like them. That's another reason I'm kind of fading him. Next bout, Diana Barbosa versus Diana Belbita. Barbosa by submission. I'm going to say round number 2. I liked what I saw from Barbosa in the Karakate fight. The mixing up with the punches, with the takedowns, the submission threats. The Miranda Maverick fight, that's just like a completely different level. Miranda's just too good. Belbita, mainly a striker. I think it's going to be a pretty simple fight for Barbosa. The odds are minus 700. That is ridiculous. So the sub, they're not even out yet. So inside the distance for Barbosa. But again, women's MMA, can't trust them. But in this case, I think a girl who's been losing to like the likes of Carolina at 40-some years old. I don't even know who Maria is. That Spider Girl, Maria Oliveira? I'm not sure. She's just not it, you know. They're keeping her for one particular reason. Next bout, we've got Davy Grant versus Daniel Santos. Another very, very, very good fight. Very similar styles. Both guys move forward. Davy throws a ton of volume. This guy, what is so interesting about Davy is that at 40 years old, nearly 39, he is still throwing excess like 100 strikes. He will throw a ton of kicks. He will wing punches. He's not uber technical, but it doesn't matter when you're just throwing shit out there and you're outlanding. Sometimes they don't need to land cleanly. Like in his last fight with Tavares, that was my biggest worry about Tavares. If Tavares did not get off early, he was probably going to end up losing a decision, and he looked frozen in there. Technically, he was winning the boxing exchanges. He was blocking a lot, but he was still blocking a lot of shots, and he wasn't, throwing enough. He wasn't landing cleanly on Davy. So that is the biggest worry when fading a guy like Davy Grant, who is currently plus 145. For Santos, a guy who has not fought since he beat Johnny Munoz about 2 years ago. I was at a wedding watching that fight on my phone. And I remember thinking, like, Daniel Santos should have easily handled Johnny Munoz, but it was just such a weird fight. I don't know where he's been. I know he's pulled out of a couple fights, but this guy, if he's still the same dude I remember, uber aggressive, constantly moving forward. He is working on getting more takedowns and top control, which to me, I think that is Davies' biggest kryptonite. When people lay on top of him, you know, Davy hasn't really been knocked out a whole ton. I remember when first fading Davy Grant, when he got dropped by like Martin Day, I was like, yo, Davy's chin is whack. It's really not. It's actually pretty solid. You have to really respect Davy and his style, as ugly as it may be. It is incredibly effective when he just starts landing that same combination with that overhand and looping punches and shit. But he has a ton of great kicks up the middle. The thing with me is the guy like Willie Cat, who is ultra dynamic, who is almost 10 years younger than him. Yes, he may be away for a while, maybe not as active, but I think he can afford to be as not active. I think he can work on a few things. His insane recoverability with John Castaneda, where John put him out multiple times, yet he kept coming back, kept pushing forward, kept pressuring. Highly impressed by Willie Cat. Have been highly impressed by Willie Cat, and I am picking Willie Cat to win this fight, but I don't think it's a wise bet. I think he can beat him in any possible facet, but at this point, I know Davy's durable. At what point is that knee up the middle from Daniel Santos going to put him out cold? So I'm not sure. Ultimately, though, I think that the damage done by Santos with elbows, high kicks are beautiful, and top control are going to win him the fight. Whether he gets the finish along the way, I'm not positive, but I think there's a good chance he might be able to finish him with a cut. And because Davy does take a lot of damage when he is getting damaged on. If you're just out there kickboxing with him, like you see a fight with him and Daniel Marcos, and you could say like, oh yeah, Davy won that one. Davy, if you allow him to kind of do what he does, just kind of spam, throw 200 strikes, some of them don't even land, he's going to have cardio for days. But if you push him, you can tire him out. If you put damage on him, you can eke out some of that gas tank. So give me Santos to do that. Just kind of constantly pressure, go for takedowns, mix in knees to the body kicks, spinning back kicks, all the fun shit that Shootobox does. Biggest concern with Santos and why I'm not betting him is he's in wars daily in the gym. At what point is like a fucking stray kick from Ian Machado gonna like hurt him badly and he's never gonna be the same? So because I don't know that, I need to see it first. So give me Santos to win this one by decision. Next bout, Luis Gurule versus Ode Osbourne. Gurule minus 200, come back on Osbourne plus 170. I was going back and forth with this one because with Luis, I was desperately trying to find a way to fade him. You know, contender series guy fighting the best guy he's ever fought. And yes, unfortunately, that is Ode Osbourne. Like, Ode's incredibly talented. And even his losses are looking worse now. You see the Lazy Boy loss. It's not looking good after the kind of stunt he pulled. And that's always been the issue with Ode. Like, he has it in the bag and then he does something stupid. I don't know if y'all remember the Tyson Nam fight. That put him on my shit list forever. This dude is just beating Tyson easily, jumps up in the air, and then Tyson just bingo bangled, pickle mangled his ass and knocks him out cold. The Charles Johnson fight, I thought that was a better look, but that was more of a Charles Johnson slip up. I still thought Charles won it, and then he should be on a significant loss streak at this point. The thing with Gurule is I couldn't find anything that indicates that he is not what he appeared to be in the Contender Series. He has great cardio. He fought Piccinini, a Division I wrestler, on like a week's notice, and he still beat him, and he still had really good cardio with stuff and takedowns. He, I believe, is a Division II wrestler, but this guy has good boxing. He moves forward, good defense. Like, he is so damn solid that I couldn't find anything that indicates that he's going to lose this fight. I think he can walk down Ode, tire him out. The problem with Ode is that the idea of Ode sometimes can lure you into that trap, and I was almost falling into it. The thing is, part of me is telling me it's not a trap this time, that he can actually catch Gurule. Gurule's never really fought high level competition, but at each guy that he's fought, he's handled them pretty well. And the most impressive performance was against Piccinini, where he looked immaculate. Even in a split decision, I thought he did enough to win that fight. What I worried about, and I thought maybe this is the thing, Gurule did get dropped by a guy like Jacob Silva. Jacob Silva is the guy that JP Buys submitted in the first round, and I use submitted in quotes because it was kind of a weird stoppage. In the first round, it took him 4 rounds to beat him, and even he dropped him. So I'm very curious if this whole complete fighter in Gurule might be, a complete fighter for the regionals, or is it a guy that he can come in here in the UFC and contend? Because that's the image that I'm seeing. I just don't know if I trust it. I am going to take him to win this one. I don't think Gurule's much of a knockout guy. He can definitely get knockouts, but at this point, if Odey's been making those improvements, I think he's incredibly live in this situation. He's just super athletic. He's super fast, and he's incredibly dangerous at any point. When we saw that fight with Rodriguez, yes, Rodriguez has a terrible defense, but he put him out. And I'm saying he was out cold, and then he woke him back up. And unfortunately, he choked him out. And then as he let go, Rodriguez woke up. So, I don't want to say it was like a big stunt, but there's just bad luck on Odey's part. And I preach that sometimes for fighters, like, hey, just let the ref stop the fight. You don't need to throw more punches. So I'm curious in this spot, can Odey maybe flash knockdown / knockout Gurule? And it's like, oh, Odey's back. And then all the Gurule backers are like, no, he wasn't even. That was a terrible stoppage. That's kind of the idea that I'm getting here. I'm going to take Gurule, but to me, it's kind of like a dog or pass on this one because like it's still a very unproven guy at the UFC level. And here's the other thing as well. This is how much I was thinking about it. Gurule might not have beaten top competition, yet he has not lost to low-level competition. He's beaten every single guy that they put him against, whether good or bad. For Odey, there's been times, again, that he should have beaten some of these dudes, and he didn't. Like fucking Tyson Nam. He should have beaten Tyson Nam, and he should have beaten Rodriguez. So, yeah, it is what it is. But, yeah, give me Gurule by a decision here. Let's move on. All right, another fight where I think it's a possible trap. And we've got here Robert Valentin versus Torres Finney. Let me get back here. What are the odds? Valentin plus 180, Finney minus 220. Well, I guess the odds are right there. Minus 225, plus 170 for Valentin. Skill for skill, Valentin is definitely worth that plus 170 if you're looking at it. Like, he has grappling background. He's got some nasty submissions. He's been getting that, I forget what you call it, but like that arm bar between your legs. There's a specific name for it, but he's got a judo background. He's not too bad striking wise. He is the much larger guy with a 1.5 inch reach advantage over Torres Finney. Finney, what's funny about Finney is that we've seen his progress from guy who's going to get murdered in the UFC to guy who is improved but still going to get destroyed in the UFC to maybe this guy might be special within 3 fights in the Contender Series. And when watching all 3 of those fights, because when you look at his regionals, it's really hard to gauge him, because a few things that you will learn from the regionals is that when he lets his hands go, this guy does have devastating power. But it's those in-between fights where he looks bad. What is this guy made of? This guy did get hurt in his first fight in the Contender Series against a legit guy in Yuri Pamfarov. Pamfarov, it's another high-level dude with good jiu-jitsu, and this guy handled him. And the second round, he overcame that adversity early where he got hurt, and it's like a good learning lesson for the kid where it's like, hey, like, I can't just always shoot for takedowns. Like, yes, he can get them. He's a monstrous guy, and it's not only that he has a wrestling background, is that fucking college football background is what just makes his refrigerator. Oh man, he's Big Papa Pump, just slamming dudes. It's such a fascinating dude at this height to be able to do this to these men much bigger than him. So it's fascinating to see. But yeah, he overcomes that. He takes the back in the second round, chokes him out. Highly impressed by that. But still, you see those horrible openings. The second fight in the Contender Series against Cam Ralston, another very dangerous guy. It looked like a father fighting his son. It looked like Michael Chandler fighting Hap. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just a weird dynamic of height. Yet he still took him down. He still was incredibly safe against a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, which Finney is now a brown belt as well. And he ended up winning that decision as well. He had to fight his fight to win, and it shows me that this guy has that ability to do what he has to win you that fight. Like, I like his mentality. And then the final fight against Arami takes him down, beats his ass, no problem. Like, when he implements his style, he's hard to get off of you. And that's the thing. Him being such a ball of just mass, he's all center of mass. He's going to be really hard to buck off if he gets Valentin down and gets him in like side control, or shit, God forbid for Valentin, or I guess in this case, Thor forbid for Valentin. He gets him in full mount. He's not going to be able to buck him off easy. This guy is just going to be too heavy. For Valentin, what makes him such an appealing underdog is, his ability to, in his last fight, even though he lost, I read and heard people saying that, like, he couldn't beat Loader, even though he had that rear naked choke on him dead to rights because his arm was broken. And it's like, oh, well, duh, of course he couldn't finish it. But it's the same thing of, like, his arm was broken. That's why he couldn't finish it. But who broke his fucking arm? His arm was broken by Ryan Loader. And then Ryan compromised him enough that he was in no threat of getting his neck taken. He eventually reverses him, second round, takes him down and pounds him out. And to me, that was one of my like favorite bets of last year, because I did feel like Valentin was like a very talented fraud, because he is incredibly talented. But I get these feelings that against higher level competition, this guy is just not going to cut it. I think his chin is very suspect, and I think he's been kind of exploiting certain guys to get victories. And I'm not saying it in a way that is negative. Like, he is going out there on legitimate fights and beating guys. It's just that when you can exploit them on the ground and submit them, it makes you look a lot better than what you are. But when you get a guy that is going to fight back and is equally as good on you on the mat, or maybe stronger than you, I want to see how Valentin does, because I think he is live against Finney, who is still very, very green. But the thing about Finney is that I've seen this guy in bad situations, and I've seen this guy lift men up over his head and drop them hard. And I think he's got the harder will, the more willpower to move on. I think he has the power to actually knock out Valentin. Here's how I kind of see it happening, one of two ways. I'm going with Finney by TKO knockout, probably in the first or second round. I think Finney, because he's kind of progressing in the UFC and in the Contender Series, from being a guy who is just like kind of afraid to strike, that is like more comfortable letting his hands go, I think he can actually hurt Valentin on the feet, maybe knock him out cold, but eventually, if he doesn't, take him down and just kind of wear on him, getting him tired, leading to that like second or third round TKO. First round, I think you can catch him with like a vicious overhand right. The thing with Valentin in this spot, because he's so much bigger, he's going to have the distance advantage. Knees up the middle, teeps to the body are going to be there for him. But when Finney moves straight for you, he's going to have the faster, more explosive movement. I think he can cut that angle much quicker. It's just in that in-between, what can Valentin do? Flying knees are going to benefit him here. I'm picking Finney because if that, say, flying knee doesn't land cleanly and knock him out, I think he's going to go for a ride, and it's going to be very difficult to get Finney off of you. I like to picture him like a giant wet blanket. It's just going to be really hard. Like, it's much easier if you have a guy that's more proportioned, where you can buck off the legs, put your feet on the hips, kick them off. But when you've got Finney who's all mass on top of you, it's like, fuck. You know what I mean? It's a giant refrigerator on you. So give me Finney second round TKO. I'm feeling more confident about it after watching more tape. And again, for Valentin, I think he's incredibly talented. He can definitely beat Finney. It's just that what's going to happen if he does go for a ride and he can't get back up and he starts gassing out. Because again, I do suspect within all the like incredible finishes that he has, he's just not quite like the kind of guy that can push forward and persevere. Like, it was awesome that he fought with that fucked up arm and he ignored the pain, but it's still kind of like, I've seen him in really bad spots where he has to grapple for his life to make sure he doesn't get knocked out. And will he be able to take down Finney? I don't know if he can. So give me Finney by TKO second round. Next bout, Meerschaert versus Tavares. Tavares minus 250, Meerschaert plus 190. It's a dogger pass. I'm taking Tavares by a decision. He has the exact style to beat Meerschaert. He has good takedown defense, although it's not looking as great as it used to. And he's got the good movement laterally, good low kicks, good punching power. This could be Brad Tavares by knockout, or it could even be Gerald Meerschaert by submission. Meerschaert does have good kicks. He has good punching power. He does tend to gas out. It's such a vet versus vet kind of fight. I don't foresee Brad Tavares just, oh my God, he's going to get knocked out. On top of that, they've been training for Gerald Meerschaert for a while. What's his name? Edmund Shabazian recently fought Gerald. And so I'm sure they know what the game plan is. Just, hey, maybe don't follow him to the ground. Just stay elusive on the feet. Hit him, maybe drop him. Don't follow him to the mat. Very simple for Brad, but is Brad still capable of doing that? Dogger pass, but give me Brad Tavares decision. Next bout, Kennedy Nzecukwu versus Martin Buday. Minus 295 for Kennedy. Comeback on Martin is plus 230. Kennedy has him beat everywhere except the wall install. Although Kennedy has moved up to heavyweight, it's going to sound stupid. I don't know if his body is fully acclimated to heavyweight. He's still incredibly fast. He is just a light heavyweight who has just been eating his normal meals and not skipping any meals. Doesn't have to cut weight. So he's kind of fighting at his natural weight class. Buday is a big boy. And I worry that he might be able to just get a hold of Kennedy, maybe take him down. I think Kennedy's got better technique. He's just faster. He moves better, better hands, better punching power, better kicks. He's going to attack the body of Buday. Buday, if you cannot decisively beat in an MMA bout Andrei Arlovsky as a big favorite, I cannot trust this guy. But I think he is a guy that can play spoiler here with his type of style where he can just get a hold of Kennedy, clinch him up. And if Kennedy can't escape him, that is his bread and butter, Buday. He is so boring in that style. But if he gets a hold of you there, it's one of those, he can probably do that for at least 2.5 rounds and make it competitive, because on the feet at distance, Kennedy's going to smoke Buday. The thing with Buday is I think he does have some good durability. So I don't know if Kennedy's can knock him out. Buday is a solid grappler, and I do worry if that Kennedy gets on his back, that giant fat body of Buday laying on top of him may not be fun to experience. But I do believe in Kennedy at this weight. I think he's been looking really good. He's much faster than him, and I think he can knock him out. I think later in the fight, second or third round, invest to the body early with those teeps. But again, Kennedy is beaten the same guys that Buday has beaten, but he's finished them. So that says something. And Buday, although not a finisher, not impressive in that manner, he's still a danger to your parlay, I'll say. But give me Nzecukwu second round TKO, attack the body, teep him to the body, head kick him. I would like to see Kennedy finish him. I think Kennedy can beat him in any manner that he wants, except in the wall install. And as I mentioned, I think he's a big boy. I just don't think he's proportionate. I think Buday might be able to just ragdoll him a bit on top, the clinch. That's what worries me the most. But give me Kennedy, just stay on the outside, attack the body, be quick on the feet, and then let the hands go up close, elbow the boy, fuck him up, we'll be good. Next bout, Cortavius Romious versus Chang Ho Lee. So this is an interesting bout as well. I like this one for live betting. Cortavius plus 135, comeback on Lee minus 165. Lee has said that he wants to be the Korean Khabib, the KK, the Korean Khabib. I see him more as the Korean Karab, as I like to call him now, because this guy is so unimpressive when you see what he does, but he is relentless with the clinch, with the takedowns. It's not the most impressive manner. Like Merab will shoot over and over and over. He has his variation of it where he shoots, you might get him down, but he'll pop back up. He's a big boy. In this case, he's bigger than Romious, but he's so unimpressive. Like his striking's not great, but it's not bad. It's like so-so. good knees to the body, but when he gets you down, his ground and pound is very nice. His fight in the road to the UFC against this uh, the Waspai, I thought was a very good win. I think this guy, despite him recently having a loss by finish, I think this guy is very good. He's like 25 now, but he's I think a Chinese wrestling champion, like silver medalist. And Chang Ho Lee was just, you know, going in there to the clinch with them. That's his game, the clinch, which Romious' game is as well. He likes to submit dudes. He's a good grappler. Maybe his striking isn't great, but he's very explosive. Chang Ho Lee against the Waspai or whatever, Zuwapus. I always have trouble with his name. He withstands everything that he's got. He is defending the chokes, but when it was his time to put him in a bad situation with his excellent cardio, he takes the back and pounds this guy out. And to me, that was a great win. Hence me picking him to beat Long Zhao, who, you know, I wasn't very high on Long Zhao, so it's a good win for him. But after seeing what he did to whatever his name is, Bang Quang, very impressed by Long Zhao. Romious, on the other hand, I faded this guy in his first fight against Bolanos. Bolanos had shown that he has some better takedown defense and better grappling, much better striker. And Romious, explosive dude, takes him down, couldn't really control him. And that was a guy that was 5'7". Now he's fighting a guy that's 5'8", whose game is primarily grappling, clinching, getting you tired. He's never been submitted in Chang Ho Lee, hence I'm picking him to win. I think he can actually finish him in the third round or decision him. Third round or decision is what I'm guessing, because Romious early is incredibly fun to watch. It's just his, why can I do this right? His finishing ability sometimes is suspicious, right? Like, he's so small for the weight class at 5'4". He's a wide guy. I think he might be suited better at flyweight. I think he can dominate dudes down there. But this guy was slamming Bolanos early on. His gas tank was suspicious as fuck to me as well. He was gassing out, trying to hold down, again, a striker. So now that he's got primarily a guy that loves to be in that fight with that good of cardio, I think he is going to eventually gas out if he doesn't catch him early. So if Romious does not get a submission early, he has a nasty armbar. Chang Ho is going to maybe lose the fight up until he starts winning the fight, essentially. It's not going to be a pretty fight. Chang Ho Lee doesn't make it pretty. It's very similar to, like, Merab. Like, this guy's not winning the first 2 rounds, but give him a 5-round fight, he will start looking better and better. And given that third round, I think he can finish him or do enough damage to, at the very least, get a draw. But I think he can actually finish Romious. So give me Chang Ho Lee in the third round, TKO, possibly by a decision. I think he might be a little too big and a little too strong for Romious, but I'm looking to be proven wrong, because I like what Romious has, but he's 31 years old. Some of the holes that he has are something that I would kind of expect from like a 25, 26-year-old. At 30, I don't know if he's going to be able to patch him up that quickly. For Chang Ho Lee, his style is his style, and it's been working for him. He's 10-1. I think he can continue doing what he's doing. So give me Chang Ho Lee by a third round TKO. Next bout, co-main event, Joe Anderson Brito versus Pat Sabatini, minus 250 on Brito. Comeback on Sabatini, plus 195. This is a fight that is incredibly hard to predict because Brito, madman, jiu-jitsu guy, nasty power, crazy dude, takes his shorts off. It's hard not to like Brito. His antics in the cage are fun, but this is a tailor-made fight for him to lose against Pat Sabatini, who is a very good wrestler with very good jiu-jitsu, very good control. The problem with Pat is that he has a horrible chin, trademarked, by the way, TM, TigerBomb, Pat Sabatini, because he's got that chin issue. When you're getting knocked out by guys like Damon Jackson, it's not a good look. And the thing with Pat is that if he doesn't get knocked out, he can definitely ride you for 3 rounds, probably submit you along the way. This guy is highly credentialed with grappling. He's a black belt. He is a Philly guy. He is essentially the featherweight Sean Brady, except that his chin is just so poor that for that reason, I can never really feel confident in a fight where he's fighting an explosive Brazilian who can also wrestle. He can also go for submissions. It's such an evenly matched fight, but they're also the right guys to beat each other. I think that given certain circumstances, Joe Anderson Brito can come out here and just get rid of Pat Sabatini's consciousness within the first round, first minute, because that explosion, that like get the fuck off me going for takedowns, and then he catches them, very similar to Diego Lopez, who a lot of people were on Pat. I remember thinking like, Diego's going to fucking hurt him. You do not understand the poor nature of Pat Sabatini's chin. He reacts incredibly poorly. And in his debut, his original debut opponent was going to be, oh my God, I can't remember his name. He's been in Karate Combat knocking dudes out with like spinning kicks and shit. Let me double check it because I have to remember his name now. It's that old-timers that I'm getting. It was Rafael Alves. Alves is, Alves. He's a submission artist, ridiculous, very similar to Brito. And I don't remember, was he the favorite? This was 2021. He was plus 150 against Alves. Alves missed weight so bad in that fight that they had to scrap it. He missed by like 10 pounds. It was really fucking funny, but he was crying like, I'm so sorry. But for Brito, that's like another version of this fight. But in this case, it's inverted where Brito's minus 250. I think they're very similar. I think Brito's just a little bit more intelligent. So to me, it's Brito has to get that knockout in that first round, because if he allows Pat Sabatini to get a hold of him, like Brito has good takedown defense. It's just that continuous pressure of Pat. Pat's not going to want to come out here and strike. He knows better. His fight against Pierce, and I don't want to compare because they both finished Pierce. One was more impressive than the other, and that was, of course, Brito, who took his pants off. It was awesome. I think Pierce respected Brito finishing more than he respected Pat for whatever reason. Like, Pat made it look easy against Jonathan, but I think Brito subbing Pierce was like more of like, oh, you got me. Like, I should have respected you more. Against Pat, I don't think he respected it at all. Like, he was like, fuck, I got beat by a loser. So the thing is, if he cannot knock him out in the first round, which is what should happen maybe like at least 7 out of 10 times, that 3 out of 10 where Pat gets a hold of him, controls him enough to like sap the energy out of him, where his punches aren't coming as fast, he can end up going all 3 rounds and getting a decision win, or possibly, and this is like, I think, very low likely to happen, Sabatini gets a submission. Sabatini's not like an insta-sub kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he can take your back, but if you know what you're doing jiu-jitsu-wise, like TJ Laramie survived him. Fucking, who else survived him? Tucker Lutz survived him. Lesser men than Brito have survived getting taken down and beat up by Pat Sabatini. But ultimately, give me Brito in the first round. Live betting situation right here. I think you got to take Brito by knockout, because that's probably what's going to happen, or inside the distance if you think he can jump a guillotine. But knockout would be plus 150. Submission, Brito is, where's submission? Ooh, plus 825, so that would be very nice. And then, of course, Pat Sabatini decision plus 350. So if your goal is to make money, I think those are the 3 props you can look into, because I don't think Sabatini's going to submit him. I don't think he's going to knock out Brito. He doesn't have that kind of power. But if you do want to go Sabatini submission, what is it? Plus 400. If only Pat was a heavy-handed dude, plus 1,500 by knockout, but ain't gonna happen. Then main event, we've got Josh Emmett versus Leroné Mussolini, plus 205 for Emmett, the tough bastard that Emmett is, and Miracle Murphy, minus 265. I don't like the line on Murphy because of the obvious threat of Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett hit Bryce Harper, thing in baseball, Bryce Mitchell so hard that Bryce Mitchell, before he fought Josh Emmett, he was like, quote tweeting Ben Shapiro, and then Josh Emmett just hits him once, and then he's like, Hitler, I love Hitler. Josh Emmett will knock the tolerance out of you, if you will. And that's what I like about Josh. Josh not only can hit hard, Josh is a tough guy. Josh has proven himself, but he is 40 years old. And Josh is incredibly, very, very obvious what he's going to do. He's lead leg heavy. The guy is going to wing overhands. He can bum rush you. This dude is a fun guy to watch. And the threat of the knockout is going to be there against Leroné Murphy. But what Leroné brings to the table and why I'm picking him by decision to cut it short is that the guy can box well. And typically guys that can box and defensively box against Josh Emmett do well. Even in his win against Calvin Kattar, he sustained more damage. It's just the threat of that knockout of Josh Emmett is his biggest weapon, because when you see the Yair fight, Yair was piecing him up, but when Josh would move forward, Yair had to respect it. You have to back up, because he's a tough guy to knock out, but he is an easy guy to land damage on. I think Murphy has really nice cutting elbows. I think Murphy is going to attack the lead heavy leg of Josh Emmett, but I want no part of it because of that giant threat of Emmett. But in all reality, I think it's Murphy is going to win this one by decision. Another possibility is that Murphy can win it via like TKO cut if he catches him with a nice elbow up and close. Because like, again, once you understand the patterns of Josh Emmett, he just ducks under and like tries to fucking land the shot. You can time that shit. You can figure it out. Murphy's that good of a striker. You can say, yeah, he got dropped by Ige, but he was essentially beating Ige that entire fight. Early on in the first round, he got dropped, kind of being a little too like lazy. And the thing about Ige is he does hit hard as fuck as well. Maybe not as hard as Emmett, but he is faster than Emmett. Emmett is not fast anymore. And especially when you start piecing up that lead leg, he's going to slow down and he's going to get desperate. And that desperation makes him more dangerous. And as long as Murphy is careful, which I'm assuming he is, Murphy called him out after his Ige win. And in that fight, you know, he showed a lot of good, promising things. He was able to control Ige on the ground. He was able to, you know, get back up and scramble after he got taken down to the third and land some good damage. I really, really respect that when a dude is more than likely on his way to lose because he got controlled for like maybe 2 minutes. He gets back up and starts like landing enough visual damage or landing hard strikes to just say, hey, I did more to the judges. It just makes it a lot easier, and the judges rewarded him with a clear 29-28. And I like the IQ from Murphy. He sometimes gets a little lazy and he might get caught, but I think his recovery was well. I don't think he got really severely hurt against Ige, and the way he cracked him with a counter elbow as he was against the cage was impressive to me. So give me Leroné Murphy by a decision. I just think he's going to be the more intelligent of the two, the cleaner guy, the better eyes, the faster of the two. He's going to attack with kicks. Emmett's not really a kicker, and he's just sustained so much damage over the last few fights. And what was laughable is that he was like plus 205 against Bryce, and Bryce not being anywhere close to the striker or defensive striker as Leroné Murphy or Yair Rodriguez. It was almost evident that was going to happen. If Leroné cannot get the respect of Josh early with the punches, he has to pepper him with a jab early. If Josh just disregards everything, he's like, this guy can't hurt me, that is a very dangerous Josh Emmett. If he does not respect the punching power, that is like, oh shit, here we go. The other thing with Josh is that he doesn't really wrestle anymore. He does have the wrestling advantage, but with Leroné, I think that puts Leroné in a better spot on the ground. I don't think Emmett's going to be able to control him for all that time and not maybe gas himself out, where Emmett will, you know, start fatiguing on the feet, and Leroné will start taking advantage of it on the feet as well. There's a lot of possibilities, but I do like Leroné Murphy's side at this point. Like, he is, 7 years younger. He's the faster of the two, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. It's just, again, if he gets caught with that nuke, we're going to see Leroné Murphy wearing black Klansman outfits in London. You know what I'm saying? Stabbing dudes and shit. They don't belong in this country, I'll tell you. So, yeah, give me Murphy by a decision. Hopefully he does not get knocked out cold. But, yeah, like I said, very interesting card, very interesting main event. And the weird thing about it is that if Murphy wins, I don't know what's next for him. I think there's going to be a lot harder competition moving forward in that featherweight division. So it might not be the worst thing to happen to him if he gets I don't want to say knocked out, but if he loses to Josh, I think Josh, I'd like for him to, not look washed here. I want him to look good. I want him to possibly get that nuke, So I'm just kind of begging, not to say that I want this to happen, but like I would not be upset if I see a Josh Emmett versus Volkanovski fight for or for not the title. But again, Johnny TigerBomb, let me know what you think. Comments below, blah, blah, blah. See you next week.